Yeah, I keep forgetting to hold down my transmit button. If you come up to the navigation and displays panel, which is just above the fuel pumps, and above the fuel pumps you'll see the fuel temperature gauge. Just above that, you've got the displays. I'm looking at the switch on the right. It says
Okay.
control panel, both on one, both on two.
Yep.
In the real plane, if I go both on two, those numbers I just programmed up just went over to your instrument panel. I don't think
Okay.
they work. I don't think they work on this sim.
Okay.
We'll come back to the MCP.
Don't don't forget to hit your transmit button.
Yeah, coming back to the MCP.
You could go Vox for this, by the way, and then turn it
Could go what?
on voice
Oh, voice only.
activation.
Yeah, I'll do that next time.
Okay.
I'm going to clear that out. So we come down next to is if you drop down just below the MCP. I'm trying to think how to describe it. Let's start by looking at the three gear lights.
Okay.
Just below the MCP. We'll come to the right of that. You've got your hydraulic pressure. I'm going to make sure that's at least 3,000. Actually, because we don't have any hydraulic pressure in the jet, this is going to be closer to
Luke 97123 with a subscribe. Thank you.
5 subcribes. Awesome. Realistically, since we don't have any hydraulic pressure, this gauge is only going to be about 1,000 pounds. I need to make sure it's got a min of 1,000 pounds. There's a hydraulic accumulator. I got to make sure that thing's powered up. If this thing's reading 0, we've got big problems on the jet. I'm going to come back to the switch to the right. You know what? I've been flying this plane for 12 years, and I don't even know what this is called. But I'm going to do a lights test and make sure my annunciator panel, that's what it's called. I'm going to make sure that my annunciator panel lights work. I'm going to make sure my lower DU and my main panel are both in normal. I'm going to set my clock at this time if it's not already set. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Next, I'm going to come down to the JipWiz test, which is just down. It's the button just to the right of the
FMC.
Copilot's FMC. And there's 3 ways to do this test. If you hold the button really long, it's going to go through this really long bite test that takes about 2 minutes. What we want to do is just do a quick test, quick press. And it's going to run through the oil warnings. And I need to make sure everything checks okay. Sometimes you get your A flight attendant, who's the flight attendant that works the forward galley. A lot of times we do this test. If you get a smart aleck, they're usually saying that stuff with us, just to be a smart aleck. Next thing I'm going to do is going to do a fire test. This one is this is tough to do. You really can't do.
You broke up again there.
Okay, we're going to do a fire test.
Okay.
This is tough to do in the sim because it takes 2 hands, and I can't do 2 hands. But I tell you what I do, John. When I go to as soon as when I get the 3 lights in the fire warning handles, I want you to scroll up for a couple minutes, or for about not a minute, maybe a couple seconds, up to the mode control panel.
Okay.
And I'll talk, and I'll look on Twitch as I'm holding this thing, and the lights are going off to tell you what I'm looking for up there. So
Okay.
the first thing I do is I'm going to go to the Fulton op. So I'm back down the fire handle. I'm going to take this Fulton alt, and I'm going to take it, and I'm looking for the 2 lights. I'm looking for the fault and the APU knot. Now, if you go up to the mode control panel, I'm looking for 3 lights up there while I'm holding this. And I got to wait till it shows up in Twitch before I can tell you, because I can't do this from memory. I'm looking for basically a master caution. Okay, next come back down to the fire panel. I'm looking for 10 lights when I do this. So I got the fire light should light up, and the sim it doesn't, but to the left of to the right of the master caution, that red fire light on both sides is going to light up. It doesn't do it in the sim, but all I'm looking for here is I'm looking for 10 lights between the mode control panel and also on the fire warning.
Okay.
So that's a good test there. Next, I'm going to come to the right. On the right part of the fire panel, there's the 3. I'm going to test the continuity of the fire bottles, the extinguisher bottles. So if you come down back in the fire panel, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go left, I'm going to go right. There's a circuit. There's a backup circuit. I'm just making sure that there's good power going back to fire the squibs on the extinguisher bottles. The two top ones, you've got two for the engine. So you got two bottles. They can be fired to the number 1 engine. They can be fired to the number 2 engine, or we can split them and go one bottle to number 1 and one bottle number 2. I don't know why we do that, because it would be a really bad day. The third bottle and the one on the bottom is the extinguisher for the APU.
Okay.
Next, the FO is going to come down and set the transponder. What's our squawk today? Make it up.
It is 4462.
I always forget to set this in the sim. In real life, you're not going to get very far because ATC is going to tell you, ground's going to tell you to do it. And then we're going to do a test on this. And then, John, if you can go to your main, your nav display, we'll look for the stuff we see in the TCAS test. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Ready?
All right. So we go to test, and we should get a display of boxes and stuff in our in the nav display, and it should say TCAS system test OK. Is it working on yours?
No.
Let me try it again. So I go to test. I wonder if I hold it, if that does it.
Should I try it on my side?
Yeah, you can try your side. Yeah, it's working on your side nicely.
Adjust vertical speed. Adjust. Climb now. Climb now.
Yep.
Climb, crossing, climb. Climb, crossing, climb.
That's cool.
Climb. Clear of conflict.
This is a long bite test we normally don't do. It's because I held the switch extra long.
Descend, crossing, descend.
All that really happens is you're going to get the 4 boxes. You're going to get the red.
Descend
You're going to get the red box that shows the plane. You know, that's a conflict at your altitude and climbing. You're going to get the white diamond above it. You're going to get the clear diamond to the left of that, and then they're going to get the amber circle. That's all you really see in this test, and then it's going to say TCAS system test OK. It doesn't test great. It doesn't test good. It just tests OK. So
TCAS
Delta,
test pass.
we shoot for mediocrity here because it only tests OK. All right, that's pretty much the FO. That's the FO flow. Now we'll transfer over to the captain's flow if you're ready for that.
Yep.
I probably forgot something because sitting in the airplane, you got muscle memory, and you just know the switches. And sitting in the airplane and then trying to look at a screen, I may have forgot something. So if I did, I do apologize for that. Captain's flow is going to start kind of the similar way. Captain's going to come in, and the first thing he's going to do is he's going to look at the back of the door. There's all kinds of FAA certificates. So if you see the emergency exit, the big red emergency exit sign on the back door, if you look just to the left of it, there's a little light gray spot, and up to the upper right, there's a little light gray spot. In those little light gray spots, those are actually sleeves, and they hold all kinds of FAA documents. There's like there's an airworthiness document, there's a radio document. We just have to make sure that there's three of the required documents are on board, and they're going to be in those little sleeves.
Okay.
Next thing I do is I'm going to go in and just behind the aft pedestal, but it's not in the sim. There's a logbook. There's a metal binder that's about 1 inch thick, and I'm going to go through that. I want to make sure that there's no write-ups on this airplane. Make sure that there's nothing wrong with the airplane, or if there is something wrong with the airplane, it's been documented. And there's a lot of stuff that could be wrong with these planes because there's so many redundant systems. We're allowed to fly without it. It's called an MEL. And so if something is written up, I want to make sure if there's an MEL, which is going to be on my flight plan, I want to make sure that the MEL is written up, it's been signed off. So I'm just looking through to make sure there's no open write-ups that somebody has overlooked. If there is, I need to call dispatch and talk to maintenance. Next, the captain's going to come over. He's going to check his escape rope, going to check the emergency exit. The oxygen the same way before. Okay, we'll move up to the aft overhead panel, up to the leading edge device indicator.
Okay, there.
I'm a little bit behind Jim playing catch up here.
Yeah, don't watch the stream.
I'm not watching the stream.
Okay.
I learned last time not to do that. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to do the leading edge device. All I'm going to do is I'm going to press the test button and make sure all the lights come on. So that's a good test. I'm going to come over and make sure both IRSs look good. Above the leading edge device, I'm going to make sure that ELT, some planes have these, some don't. If it's there, I'm going to make sure that switch that guarded switch is closed and safety tied. I'm going to make sure that the light to the left of it is off.
Okay.
I'm going to come over to the interphone service switch next. I want to make sure that that's off. We don't really use that anymore. If I were to leave that thing on in flight, we're going to get all kinds of noise coming in from the that kind of controls the panel down below where they plug in the aircraft. The ground rampers also have that same switch down there. We let them control it, not us. Because if I leave that thing on, it's going to make all kinds of noise.
Okay.
Up in our headsets, which we don't want. EECs, I'm going to make sure that those are on. I'm going to make sure I don't have any fault lights in the engine above it. I'm going to come over to the flight recorder. I'm going to open the guard. I'm going to take the switch to test, and then I'm looking for the off light to go out. Once it goes out, I'm going to close the switch. I'm going to close the guard. And that the off light should come back on. Next, I'm going to come over to the Mach airspeed warning. I'm going to press it and just make sure that it's clicking, so those are working. Next, I'm going to go down to the stall warnings. I'm going to press these. The real jet, this doesn't handle anything like the sim. It's fun. I've gotten a couple streamers into the jet and let them throw some switches while we're on the ground before takeoff, before we're loading passengers. These two switches always throw flight sim guys off because they're used to how the sim or how it behaves in the sim, and how it behaves in the airplane is totally different. The airplane, you're going to push the button, you're going to hold it for a second, you're going to release it, and it's going to be about 3 seconds before the stall warning goes off. But in this thing, I just hold it until I hear it go off. And what we're looking for when it goes off is I'm looking for the stick shaker. The control yoke will shake. Does this work in the sim, John?
Yep.
I'm not.
I hear it. Yeah. The yoke is shaking.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm not hearing it on my side. Next, I'm going to come over and make sure the dome lights work. I'm going to make sure that next time I come to the left of the dome light, there's one little black warning light by itself. That's the PSEU light. I want to make sure that is off. What the PSEU is that's our ground
Where
sensing.
are you again? I've lost where you are.
I'm just below
dome
the
light.
leading
I got
edge.
it. Dome light. Yep.
I'm to the left of the dome light though. There's an individual warning black switch all by itself. It's just below the leading edge devices indicator.
Oh yeah.
That's the PSEU light. That's a ground sensing system. It's the computer logic that controls, if the plane can tell it's on the ground. If it's not, if that's messed up, this PSEU light will be on, and we do not take off with that light on. This light's inhibited in flight. Next, I'm going to come down to the flight control panel.
Give me just a second. Give me just 1 second.
You got it. Matter of fact, you know what?
What?
I'm gonna.
One of the flight attendants wants to talk to me. I'll be right back.
That's fine. I'm gonna take advantage of this time to hit the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back.
Right back. No pilots in the cockpit. A sim pilot's dream. Just go there and hang out, yeah. Hope you guys are all doing well. Really lucky to have a real world captain, 737 captain here with our sims connected. Fun stuff. I've got real live traffic injected into the sim, so this is actual real world Southwest plane taxiing. Looks like they're taking off on the 7s instead, it looks like. That could be quite a long taxi. That one's going to Detroit. Wait, they're landing. Alright, so that 738's coming in. Alright, so they are landing to the west. He's landing 25. Yep. Okay. So we'll probably go 25 right. How does the voice activated work? I saw you in the Max video. Planecommand.com. Yep. If you type in exclamation voice, it'll come up with the link. Chuck should be back in just a moment. Type in exclamation live traffic and let me know if that works, Joey. You have to put an exclamation voice together, John. That can't be a space in between.
All right, I'm back.
Okay, we got we got to get to Albuquerque, so we got a wheels up time. We better kick it into high gear.
All right, I'll do what I can.
No,
Like I said,
we don't want, no safety compromise, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no. So anyways, okay, where am I at? I'm in the flight control panel on the overhead panel. Just going to make sure that the flight control A and B switches are safety tied, the yaw damper safety tied, the alternate flaps, red guarded switch is also safety tied. I'm going to come down. I'm going to put the yaw damper on. I'm going to make sure the navigation switches are all in normal. Coming down displays, making sure it's auto normal. Fuel panel, I'm going to come down and I'm going to turn on the pumps that I've got fuel in the tanks for. So right now we've only got fuel in the main tank, so I'm going to turn on all 4 main tanks. Some guys test the cross fleet. You're just looking for it to go bright and dim. Some guys don't. It's not required.
Thanks, Joey.
Next, I'm going to come to the electric panel. I'm going to check the TRs. I need to make sure I've got DC amps and DC volts on this. The Zebo does not do the DC volts. So realistically, if that was 0, I wouldn't take the jet, but it would be closer to like 22 and like maybe 5 or 10. But I'm going to make sure that the TRs are working. What the TRs do, the transformer rectifiers, the generators on the plane generate AC power. The TRs convert that AC power to DC power for some systems in the aircraft. I'm going to make sure that our planes have a galley switch. They don't have these switches. Make sure that the galley switch is on. If you don't, the flight attendants are going to start griping at you because their coffee pots aren't working. Not going to do anything on the electric panel. Next, I'm going to come down to the center panel. The only thing I'm really going to check here is I'm going to turn on the fasten seatbelt sign. Next, I'm going to come up to the window heat. And the captain's going to turn all 4 of these on. Next, the captain's going to come down to the probe. I'm going to turn these switches on, make sure lights go off. Turn them back on. Not going to do anything with the anti-ice. I'm going to come down to the hydraulic pumps. We're going to turn the A pumps off, the electrics on. Now we have hydraulic pressure on the aircraft because the B electric pump has just come on. I'm going to make sure these door lights are going to be at various stuff. They're going to be on. And then I'm going to test going to come down to the cockpit voice recorder, going to press the test button, looking for a light, and then release it. Next, the captain's going to come down to the remote control panel. And going to do the exact same thing on the EFIS. He's going to set the barrow. If the FO hasn't set it for him, he's going to set the barrow, all that stuff. He's going to make sure that the flight director's on. Next, going to come down below the mode control panel to the main, just above the navigation display. Going to make sure that the main panel and lower DU controls are both in normal. Going to come over to the annunciator lights, going to do a lights test on that, just like the FO did. Next thing to do is going to do a lights test, and most captains do this right about the time that the FO is trying to tune up the radios, because this takes it away from them. But I'm going to take the lights test to test, and just in the interest of time, we're just going to check every light, make sure there's no burned out bulbs. Each of these lights that are lit up have 2 bulbs in it, so I mean it's really, really, really rare to have both bulbs burned out at the same time. So one burned out bulb was real obvious. Next, going to come over to the panel above the engines, and on the fuel flow, I'm going to reset it. It's going to reset from the previous flight, and just reset it to 0. And we're next going to come over to arm the auto brakes. Next, going to come down, and I think you're going to have to do this, John. Going to actually physically going to take my hand, and I'm going to slap the speed brake and make sure that it's fully forward. And then we're going to take, and you're going to have to do this part, John. I'm going to take each thrust reverser one at a time. Go full forward, listen for a takeoff warning horn, bring it back to idle, take the number 2 throttle, do the exact same thing. Throw it full forward, listen for the takeoff warning horn, and retard back to idle. And we're just making sure that the auto brake, or the takeoff warning horn works.
Okay, done.
Okay, I don't hear the horn on my side. It must be just on your side. Next, we can come down and check that the emergency brake, or the parking brake is set.
Okay.
Make sure that both start levers are in cutoff. And to the right of the start levers, you see the stab trim cutout switches. We're going to make sure both of those are in normal.
Okay.
Next, the captain's going to do the exact same fire test that the FO just did.
Okay, let's just say we did it.
Okay, next the captain's going to come down and hit the test button on the cargo fire. It's not modeled in this, but you're looking for the fire lights and the cargo warning to go. And then finally the captain's going to test the weather radar, which is not modeled here either, but all we're going to do is go on the EFIS panel, going to push the weather radar button, and then all kinds of colors and rainbow appears in your nav display.
Okay.
And it's going to go through and other stuff. And that's pretty much the before start flow.
Okay.
At this point, the captain's going to go in and do his pre-departure brief.
Okay. Go ahead.
You want me to do a real brief? Actually, let me get these numbers in here. What flaps do you want to use? This is an 800, so it'll probably be, what, 5?
Yep. It's just, yeah. And then you can auto-populate the CG by just clicking on it. And the reason that we don't have V speeds is probably because our outside air temperature is not set. But let me check something. I got control,
I'll let you
okay?
fix that. You got it.
I'm just going to auto-populate the outside air temperature plus 13, and then that gives us our V speeds. So go ahead.
All right, so I populate that. And in the real jet, this is auto-populated also. It's there. We just have to check the numbers in 3 different places. So you can see our 134, and I said 136.
Very close.
So
Be his 61, how are you doing? Mustafa Ola. Froseratus, how you doing? Zebo, baby. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pulling up a briefing guide here real quick. I'm going to do this. I want to make this sound good since I've got an audience here. Bear with me about 30 seconds.
How long is this flight? It's about 40 minutes once we get airborne.
By the way, everybody who just watched this, what we just spent, the last hour going through, in real life, we're talking 5 minutes.
5 minutes,
with a proficient crew. If you got a new hire, a guy right out of training, an FO, and it's not a ding on him, it's just the way shifting gears, learning to do things differently. A lot of people aren't used to flows. So the first few times, it takes about a month and a half before you get comfortable with the flows. So if you got a guy that's the new hire, I always give him the full 30 minutes because he's going to need it.
Okay, let's do briefing because we got wheels up time.
I got to pull up a checklist here.
I may be in a little bit of a rush up because I got about an hour and a half.
Okay.
Just letting the chat know why I'm. Last time we got up to the taxiway, we didn't even.
All right. So the briefing, captain briefing. Captain is going to be the pilot flying this leg. The FO will be the pilot monitoring. Station information pages. Big thing here in Phoenix. Since we're taking off the west, there's no emergency engine out stuff. If we were taking off the east, if we lost an engine on departure, we have a special procedure we have to fly. We brief that at this point. Alternates, none. No special airports today. MEL items, none. NOTAMs, we go over that. Adverse weather, there's none. Taxi routing, we'll probably be taking off 25 right, so we're going to taxi to the east. We'll cross under the railway bridge and then take off 25 right. So going under that railway bridge, that's a potential there for a just keep an eye out for a collision hazard there with other airplanes. And also there's a 25 right. If you're not careful, you could actually get a runway incursion if you don't pay close attention. So we'll keep our eyes open there. RTO considerations, anything below 80 knots. If you see a problem, if you see any cautions, warning signs below 80 knots, state what you see. I'll make the decision whether to continue or reject. Above 80 knots, we're only reject to take off for an engine fire, fire warning, engine failure, predictive wind shear, or for some reason we deem the aircraft is incapable of flight. Anything above it, anything that's not those things, we're going to get airborne and we'll take care of the problem there. If I do have to do rejected takeoff, our number one priority is to bring the aircraft to a complete stop, and that's what we're going to focus on. If you can get a radio call off to the tower to let them know we're aborting the takeoff, that's great, but I don't want you to sacrifice the stuff you have to go through. Big thing you got to do as an FO, make sure I get the speed brakes deployed, make sure we go max auto braking, and bring the aircraft to a complete stop, and also make sure I get the thrust reversers deployed. Once you bring the aircraft to a complete stop, if you have not already made a radio call to the tower, let them know at that point. Back me up. Make sure I make an announcement to the passengers to remain seated. Okay? We'll get into an emergency checklist if it's required at that point. If the emergency checklists are not required, we're going to taxi clear. We'll stop. We'll get into the brake energy charts and see if we have a brake fire likely to happen or not. Any questions on any of that?
No questions.
All right, let's go through the pilot flying brief. We'll go through the clearance. Assume we're cleared as filed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the pilot flying is the guy that briefs this. So basically, he's going to review the clearance, explain what we do. Basically, I'm going to take off an LNAV, let the plane fly an LNAV the whole time, and I'm going to brief whatever nav radios I have timed up. We're going to go over the FMC route. So the way this works is the pilot that's flying is going to brief the departure procedure off of the FMC, while the pilot monitoring is going to back them up, and it's going to follow along on the depicted procedure on the Jeppesen plate. What we're looking for here is to make sure what's programmed up in the aircraft matches exactly what's on the departure procedure in the JEP or the ForeFlight plate.
Okay.
So since you're flying this, do you want to brief it up?
Let's just go ahead and assume that you're flying. I'm flying it, but let's just pretend you are for that.
Okay.